There's a new ETF in town. It's called the Schwab Crypto Thematic ETF, ticker symbol STCE, and today we're talking about this ETF. It's brand new. This thing just came out like a few weeks ago, and we're going to figure out why someone would even maybe want to use this ETF. Why would you have put this in your portfolio? What type of exposure might someone want to have with this ETF? And we're going to compare it to some other things, like things like the BITO ETF, BITO, which I own, unfortunately, unlucky for me. And another one, we'll talk about ARK in this. We'll compare it to some other potential ETFs that people might have in a similar basket here. So, okay, like I said, we're going to do a comparison to some other ETFs, but the first thing I want to do is open up the prospectus and just take a look at this real quick. Now let's talk about the fund's investment objective. So the fund's goal is to track as closely as possible before fees and expenses the total return of an index that is designed to deliver global exposure to companies that may benefit from the development or utilization of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and other digital assets, and the business activities connected to blockchain and other distributed ledger technology. First thing I kind of want to point out here is we have the word companies. So this is really going to be investing in companies. It's not going to be investing in cryptocurrency itself, which currently is not actually allowed. The BITO ETF that I actually have is only Bitcoin futures. So right now you can't have an ETF that actually holds physical cryptocurrencies in it. There have been a lot of discussion about that, and apparently the SEC doesn't want this to happen. I don't know what's going on with that. Not updated, but I just know it has not happened with it yet. So I think the more fun part of this video is going to be when we compare the different ETFs. I do just quickly want to talk about their proprietary rules-based methodology. So the way that they go ahead and they find potential stocks to put into this ETF, and then once they find those potential stocks, how do they go ahead and decide what goes into this ETF? So first off, thematic beta, and it's basically, so they created a scoring system, right? And it's using a proprietary natural language algorithm using keyword terms to review large volumes of publicly available data, including data sets and documents. So honestly, I don't really understand what any of this means, right? So at the end of the day, I mean, they created a algorithm to help them figure out which stocks can go into this. And at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're trying to create a score. Down here, you'll see thematic beta score greater than 0 is then mapped to one or more commodity or equity securities, including blah, blah, blah. Okay. They create a score. They go out, they have this algorithm, it goes out, finds which potential stocks can enter this portfolio. There's a score. They decide if the stock's actually able to go in here, and if it is, then they put some other things like liquidity and investability screens. So they don't want companies that are like illiquid, right? They don't have a lot of shares that trade. You know, that's of course if you have a decent size ETF. You don't want like very small stocks, like stocks that are worth like, let's say companies that are the size of like $1 million market cap. You can't throw that in here, right? And they have to be like trading a lot, so there has to be volume. And so once you get through all this different stuff, then it's ranked, and they pick up to 50 companies that are kept inside the index universe. Okay, that's how they find stocks to go into this thing. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't matter that much, but maybe it's okay to kind of like at least understand if you decide to get into something like this. So, okay, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this for some other ETFs. I'm assuming that you understand cryptocurrency in general is quite volatile, quite risky. It's not, you have to have some risk. You need to be non-risk averse to be able to want to get into something like this. We're currently in a crypto winter, another crypto winter, right? So this happens, it seems to happen every few years. Now, I unfortunately made the decision to buy into this BITO ETF when Bitcoin was essentially peaking. And BITO, what you have right here, is an ETF that tracks Bitcoin using futures contracts, right? That's the only way that you can invest in something that can get exposure to the price of Bitcoin right now using an ETF. The other way to do it is like you go to Coinbase or you go to an actual brokerage and you buy Bitcoin, or or maybe you're like better at this than me and you have real ways to do it, right? So whatever it is, maybe you're into cryptocurrency and you actually want to own physical Bitcoin or digital Bitcoin, let's say. So if you're like that, I'm not sure if you would even care about something like this, right? So you're in into Bitcoin and you're into cryptocurrency, and you could probably get better exposure to what's going to happen outside of something like this, why not just go straight to the, I'll call it a commodity or the currency or whatever you think it is, why don't you go straight to it, invest in it, right? The other way to do it is, okay, let's say you're not into that like me. I don't have a Coinbase account, right? I have not opened up any type of cryptocurrency account in my name. I can't buy it. So why is that? I just don't have any desire to do it. I'm lazy. That's another potential reason. And I'm not very into it, right? So I wanted a little bit of exposure, very small amount. So I threw some money into BITO and ETF just to have a little bit and just in case, things go well. Well, that thing's down like 60 something percent. And you know what? I bought at peak Bitcoin price apparently. So obviously I'm not a very good Bitcoin investor. So anyway, that was a kind of tangent. Let's talk about these different ETFs. We have STCE. This is the Charles Schwab Thematic Bitcoin ETF we just talked about. This is BITO, the one I just talked about that I own. And we have ARK, which I think most people probably know. ARK is a ETF. Kathy Wood is the fund manager for ARK. It is a innovation ETF and invests in innovative companies. And so let's take a look. Let's compare these. So first off, what do you have? You got expense ratios here. So 0.3% is STCE, 0.95% BITO, ARK is 0.75%. So, off the bat, it's actually a cheaper ETF if you think about the fees. Now, a lot of people that are investing in stuff like this, the fees probably aren't a huge factor. Like if you're really investing in this type of ETF, asset class, whatever you want to call it, if you're investing in that, you probably think you're doing it because you're looking for very large gains. You're not looking for just normal gains, right? So at the end of the day, maybe you don't even care about 75 basis points or 0.75% investing in ARK or in BITO with 0.95%. Maybe it doesn't matter to you, right? You're not exactly an index fund investor investing in like the VOO, right? The VOO index fund to track the S&P 500. So different type of person's buying this is what I'm trying to say. And maybe you don't care about expense ratios. Now, if you do, good. Well, you got STCE with the lowest expense ratio of all of these. The CTF is so early, it's so new. There's not even data right now about how many assets are inside the CTF so far. So, but we do have information for BITO. There is $804 million inside of that ETF, and then for ARK, there's $9.3 billion in assets under management. ARK has 37 holdings, BITO has 6, and a lot of those are probably just like, of course, there's Bitcoin futures, but then there's other things like probably like cash and stuff like that. And then you have STCE, which it doesn't also say here. But the thing is, we did discuss before, and it said that the goal is to have 50 stocks, 50 holdings, right? So let's assume that there's 50 holdings in this thing. BITO inside, I don't know why it says stocks on here. Let's just whatever. Let's go to the top 10 holdings here. So top 10 holdings for STCE. This is what we probably want to see. Marathon Digital Holdings, 7.36% of the portfolio. MicroStrategy, 7.16% of the portfolio. Riot Blockchain, Coinbase, Silvergate Capital Corp, Robinhood Markets, Interactive Brokers, Hive Blockchain Technologies, PayPal, CME Group, okay? So you have quite a few different companies that have exposure to Bitcoin, of course. If you're a broker, a cryptocurrency broker, obviously you are trying to make Bitcoin more accessible to people, right? And so that's one of the things that we read that this ETF is looking for. And then, of course, there's MicroStrategy. And if you know anything about MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor is like the biggest Bitcoin bull in the world, right? And so that's a big one, I guess, here. So MicroStrategy, for whatever reason, they have it number 2. And MicroStrategy does own a lot of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So probably the reason why they're getting exposure to Bitcoin through this ETF. But then you're getting the whole company as well. And so maybe they like the company as well. I don't know. So you got that. BITO, just of course, it has mostly just futures for Bitcoin. And then ARK, we have things like Tesla, Zoom, Roku, Block, which is Square, CRISPR, Teladoc, Intellia Therapeutics, Exact Science, Beam Therapeutics, Unity Software. Now, Coinbase was actually a big holding in ARK before, and now it's not. Kathy Wood sold out of that recently. So whatever you think is a good investment right now, crypto-wise, I don't know why you would necessarily want to own this type of ETF, but if you're just looking for exposure to companies that have something to do with cryptocurrency, that would probably be the reason you'd want this. You don't want exposure to Bitcoin itself, the price of Bitcoin, or general cryptocurrencies. You really just want exposure to those companies that operate inside the world of cryptocurrency. And if that's what you want, if that's what you're looking for, this is something you can use to go ahead and get that exposure. For me, I'm never going to buy something like this. I don't really care about having exposure to cryptocurrencies. Any companies that mine Bitcoin, companies that are brokers that are just trying to make Bitcoin more accessible to people. That's not something I care about that much. But I do have a little bit of say Bitcoin exposure via that BITO ETF just to have it, and that's how I'm getting my exposure. Now, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want, but that's what I'm doing. That's the way I kind of see this whole thing, and that's it. So I hope you liked the video. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you have a specific reason why you're trying to look at this ETF? Do you find it interesting? Are you going to invest in it? I'd love to hear from you. And please hit that like button if you like this video. Subscribe to see future videos like this, and got another video. It's coming up right now, so check it out. Thanks everyone so much for watching. I do want to remind you I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is just my opinion, and let's face it, I am not right 100% of the time. So please do your own due diligence.